as I was saying before, you're responsible for the swipe, right?
Well, not me directly, but our team, yes.
Right? Don't take credit. So what was the problem at the time that you were trying to solve?
When I started Tinder, it was 2012, I started thinking about the idea. I noticed mobile phones were in some sense bringing people closer together, but at the same time isolating us.
Right.
I would be sort of sitting with friends and everyone's doing the thing that is very common now. In 2012, it was sort of a surprise to me. I realized that everyone's having trouble, more so than before, connecting with others. And one of the biggest barriers was that if you walk up to someone that you like, you're afraid of getting rejected. And that was what Tinder set out to solve, to help make it easier to meet new people. I think that worked beyond our wildest imaginations.
So like Match just reported earnings, and some analysts, I think, say Tinder is worth close to $20 billion. So essentially, because you were afraid of getting rejected, now we have a company
Yes.
worth $20 billion. So, fast forward years later, things got very complicated because I don't know how much our audience knows about this, but Tinder wasn't exactly built as an independent company. It was built as part of an incubator at IAC. Do you regret that now?
Well, we didn't really have a choice. I think initially Tinder was supposed to be an independent company. That was the promise, and that promise was reneged on, and we had to find another relationship that allowed Tinder to grow, incentivize the team, the founders, to sort of pour their hearts and souls into this company, and it worked. I mean, we are where we are. We're also in a lawsuit with IAC, so I guess that relationship did not work.
So take me to that lawsuit. And I remember covering this, right? It was about almost a year ago, that you decided to take on IAC, particularly Barry Diller. And I remember because I sent the lawsuit personally to Barry Diller and asked him for comment. He hasn't gotten back to me yet.
Not surprised.
Why the law? What was the premise? And I mean, did you think you had a shot at it?
Good question. So to step back, the Tinder team and founders owned a meaningful stake of the company, and we had a simple contract with IAC that said in 2017, 2018, 2020, and 2021, there would be an independent value of Tinder. And the option holders and the founders and all the employees had the right to participate and had the opportunity to sell in each one of those valuations. They could sell their shares to IAC. When the first of those steps came along in 2017, IAC did some pretty shocking things. They manipulated financial information. They lied. And ultimately said the value of Tinder was $3 billion, which is, we all knew and they knew, was multiple. The actual valuation was multiples of that.
What did you believe it was?
Look, we're in a lawsuit, so I don't want to talk specifics. As you said, analysts.
Could you estimate?
Look, analysts right now are saying Tinder's close to $20 billion, and that would make it worth more than the Match Group. And I think we always believed Tinder's going to be worth tens and tens of billions of dollars. And that was, I think, when you're sort of inside the company, that's kind of obvious because you're seeing the trajectory, and it was very clear that it's not worth $3 billion, which is the valuation we got. But it was worse than that because, as I explained, we had multiple bites at the apple, right? If we didn't like the valuation in 2017, we could have waited and grew with the company. And we were all very positive about Tinder's outlook and growth. We were in there. We sort of were seeing the impact it was having in the world. But IAC took away our ability to capture that future value because they merged the company and essentially forced us to sell our shares at the $3 billion valuation.
So Match claims, and I have to read it, the facts are simple. Match Group and the plaintiffs went through a rigorous, contractually defined valuation process involving 2 independent global investment banks, and Mr. Rad and his merry band of plaintiffs did not like the outcome.
No, we didn't like that they lied and manipulated financial information and misled the banks. And we didn't like that there was ultimately a promise made to all the employees. I mean, a lot of people dedicated their lives and took, and foregoed other opportunities to come work at Tinder because they believed that as Tinder grows, they could capture the upside value of Tinder. And that was all taken away from us. And that's why we're in a lawsuit, and we're feeling very good about the facts of the lawsuit.
It's been about a year. Do you think now, and in that year, I guess an update, IAC has now countersued you for $250 million. Are you
Yes,
sleeping at night?
I'm good because I'm happy with the facts. Look, we all know large corporations. What do they do when they have a losing hand? They bully, threaten, retaliate, and this is no different. I think IAC has done everything they can to avoid talking about the facts and the truth. And we will be in front of a jury soon, and I'm looking forward to talking about the facts and the truth. And they can only avoid it for so long. So I've always tried to remain long-term focused and focused on what really matters. And their countersuit is just another retaliatory action and has no merit. We filed to dismiss it. I'm confident it's going to get dismissed. But it's just another way to distract people from the actual facts. And the case is going well.
It's a fascinating story of like a founding story of a company that kind of no one paid attention to, and then all of a sudden everyone's paying attention to, and there's a lot of money to be made as it starts kind of coming up. I want to talk about dating now.
Sure.
You had trouble talking to people or talking to women and created a tech solution to fix it that is doing so well, in fact, that there's kind of lawsuits around it and all sorts of things. Fast forward. Wouldn't you say that this tech solution, right, the swipe, and I have friends, clearly no one in the audience though, but I have friends who are on the dating apps, and you talk to them and they say like, oh, I'm off the apps. It's like you're on the apps or you're off the apps because there's so many
It's become
choices.
overwhelming.
It's become overwhelming, and I think this is a larger narrative with technology. So wouldn't you say that this tech solution that you created has created a whole new set of issues when it comes to dating and the way we interact?
Well, we started Tinder to help people connect. We wanted to create new connections, and we succeeded at that. I think maybe a little too well, because people are overwhelmed with the opportunities that they're exposed to meet new people. And I think as you think about that paradigm, it applies to a lot of technology. I think technology has been effective in giving us value, but it's also required a lot of our attention and a lot of our time. People are spending countless hours during the day stuck on their phone, scrolling on Instagram, swiping on Tinder. And I think what you're going to see, particularly as new technologies like AI mature, you're going to see that these platforms will start giving time back. And I think fast forward years from now, if I was still at Tinder, I would imagine we would start finding ways to actually get rid of the swipe and find ways that AI can do the work to help you find that person or the piece of content on Instagram that you're looking for and not have to scroll through some unproductive content that's not relevant to you.
That's interesting. Let's jam on that for a second.
Okay.
So we got some investors in the audience. You've got like former CNN tech reporter here. You're building we're at Tinder, created Tinder. You're building a dating app today, knowing everything you know about, what you created and where we are now, culture, society, with technology. So building it ground up, how would you build a dating app today?
I think people are overwhelmed by technology. And at the same time, technology has gone better. And that means with AI and different paradigms, we could create an even more simple experience. It's funny because everyone says Tinder's so simple and brilliant in its simplicity. I look at it and I'm like, it's not simple enough. The promise of a technology is that I can get the outcome I want without necessarily getting distracted in the process. And you look at all these technology companies, they're founded on this principle of taking away attention, taking away my time so that they can make more money through advertising. Tinder's different because we make money through subscription revenue. And ultimately, what people are looking for is to meet someone special. And if we can deliver that value proposition in a way that is more accurate, faster, and requires less of your input, I think that would be celebrated by users. And we're getting to the point where the technology exists for us to do that. So if I was sort of building it from scratch again, or reinventing Tinder, I'd probably look at getting rid of the swipe. I would probably look at building or reinventing the product to deliver the outcome without a lot of the work that's required right now. And the same thing goes for Instagram, same thing goes for Facebook.
And utilizing artificial intelligence, right? So like that I use certain types of words, or I move a lot, or
Yeah,
I mean I don't move a ton, but
look, you can apply this to so many things. Right now, I'm on stage with you.
right.
How many of my friends are, I mean, who knows, people are calling me, they interrupt me. If my phone was here, that would be a constant distraction, and it would take away from this moment,
Yeah.
from the moment that we're in right now. And ultimately, that would have an impact on my mental health, and that would have an impact on my happiness. But I think as technology gets smarter, it might know and work on your behalf to know when is the appropriate time to interrupt you. And for example, if someone calls and that's not, or you get an email and that's not really that important in this moment, it might decide not to send you a push notification, but it might decide to send you a push notification, interrupt you when it's truly important. And that starts to give back your time where you can spend that on life. I mean, we all have a limited amount of time during the day, and we have a limited amount of time in our lives to enjoy life, and we have to prioritize what's important. And I think as much as technology has given us value, it has also required a lot of attention that has started to hurt us and hurt our mental health and ultimately take away time from other things that we need as humans to be happy.
I've heard in Silicon Valley there are engineers who are actually creating bots to date for them, to scroll. I mean, to actually go through the dating apps, as if the dating apps aren't, no offense, not personal enough. They're creating bots to go and find their match on the dating app, so they don't even have to.
Yikes.
Is that the reaction? Is the reaction like, is that the future?
No,
Okay.
no, absolutely not. I
Okay.
think no matter as good as technology gets, you're never going to replace human intimacy. You're never going to replace the importance of getting to know someone, being vulnerable, sharing with them. And technology can't solve that for you. It'll never be able to solve that. So it can assist us in creating those moments and putting me in front of someone that I will have a meaningful connection with. But you can't take out the work of being an individual. You can't take out the work that requires you to be yourself and share yourself. If you do that, then we're just robots.
I think it's funny. Tristan Harris, who runs something called Time Well Spent, argues that tech companies have downgraded humanity. This is, you sit at a lot of the tables I sit in Silicon Valley where people are talking about, well, what do we do now with kind of the attention economy and some of the problems we're facing. We have shorter attention spans. You have kind of this outrage-fueled dialogue happening online, smartphone addictions. We're more polarized, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and Tristan recently said that tech companies and should enable a new race to the top, right? They should build tools to help people focus, find common ground, to promote healthier childhoods, to bolster our democracy. So it's up to technology in Silicon Valley to fix the problems that it created. Do you think Silicon Valley is the solution?
I think we have to be self-aware. And as much as we want to be optimistic and believe that the people who created this problem are the ones to solve it, I think we need to take a step back and understand what these products are doing. You can't really solve this unless you understand the human mind, unless you understand our needs, our sort of what makes us human and what do we need. And Tristan is making an important step in that direction. I think it's very dangerous, particularly when you have AI, and you have very intelligent systems that are recommending content to us, recommending articles, and swaying our judgment and our opinion. You have to be very good and diligent about how you're teaching that technology to decide what's good for us. And I don't believe we have that answer yet. So it's really dangerous, because if we get that wrong, if we teach the computer the wrong thing, then I think that's going to backfire in a very bad way because computers are a bigger part of our lives right now. So we have to take a step and really understand the human mind, understand the human condition, and teach the right values and the right things to these computers, looking at the long term. What is it that is good for humans in the long term? I think you look at fundamentally Facebook and all these technologies, they're very short-term driven. They're thinking about what I want now. How do I get that quick dopamine hit? But they're not thinking about the impact on my overall emotional well-being that those quick dopamine hits are creating. They're connecting me with my friends, but in a way also isolating me from my friends. And they're not really being considerate of the impact on my mental health of doing that. And thousands of years of evolution. So I love what Tristan's doing. It's a step in the right direction. I'm skeptical that the answer is there, but I think he's more so asking the right questions, which is fantastic.
Mental health is very important to you. It's funny
Very.
because you've essentially been pushed out of the company that you created. I mean, you're not involved in the day-to-day at Tinder
No.
anymore. How does
No.
that feel?
It sucks.
Yeah.
I can't say it feels good.
I think
but
a lot of folks, and I mean, talk about that because I think a lot of folks don't realize like the lawsuit is extreme and it's about money, but it's also very emotional for me and for you, knowing you have always been about and knowing, you can jam on these ideas about dating and mental health and all this kind of stuff. It does have to be pretty emotional.
It's personal to me. And I think the difference between the Tinder team and IAC has always been we built this product for ourselves and our friends, and we're accountable, right? So my mom, if something happens, my mom calls me, what's going on? Or my friends tell me what's going on. And I have to be accountable for that because that's the consequence of having created Tinder. So I think it kind of sucks that I'm not there because on one hand you're accountable, but on the other hand I have no ability to guide the vision. But I'm hoping that the Tinder team makes the right decisions and takes it in the right direction. At the same time, not being there has freed up a lot of time for me to think about other ways to help people. And mental health is something that's, again, a personal thing for me.
Why?
I think I've struggled with as you said, I've been through a lot, and it's only natural that I've struggled to cope with that. I have friends who are struggling with mental illness. I have sort of a general feeling around me that people are not happy in between my community. But let's look at the stats. Suicide is the second source of death for people under the age of 30. And it's increasing at a scary rate. Just think about that for a second. It is the second largest source of death. And 1 in 4 people in the world suffer from mental illness. 1 in 3 suffer from debilitating anxiety. And 1 in 2 will say that they're not happy with their mental state. They're not happy with their mental well-being. And let's look at what's happened over time. If you go to baby boomers, 30% of people will say they're not happy with their mental health. You fast forward to Gen Z, and this is a generation that's growing up with technology. We're about the same age. We had a peaceful childhood and then started being introduced to technology and different ways of doing things. Gen Z is growing up with it. And what's happened now is 60% of Gen Z will say they are unhappy with their mental health. That's also the cohort where where suicide is most prevalent. So to say that we're not in a crisis, to say that this isn't should be the main focus that we're all focused. It's cool that we're launching rockets into space and trying to figure out how to conquer other planets. Why not first figure out quality of life here on Earth? And it's great. There are a lot of important issues for us to think about, but I think mental health is going to be the defining issue of the next 10, 20 years, and it's getting worse.
And that's kind of what your next thing is, since kind of being freed up from Tinder, even though it wasn't necessarily your choice.
Yeah. Look, I have to move forward, and I
Yeah.
have to see the positive, and I think what built Tinder is also the thing that's going to carry me forward, which is shit happens, but you can either stay stagnant or you can learn from it and grow and use it to do more.
My last question to you is, having known you all these years, the Sean I talk to now versus the Sean I talked to when I picked up the phone and we had kind of hacked Tinder
Yeah.
in those early days, and I'm sure you had a heart attack.
Yeah.
And now you've had all sorts of heart attacks since then,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. What's the biggest difference between that Sean then and this Sean here now?
So much.
But if you could kind of extract one thing.
I think that's a great question. I think a little more awareness of myself. And that is what I'm trying to do now. And again, I started Tinder because I wanted to connect with others. I started Tinder because my friends were struggling to connect with others. And now what I sense is what we need is to connect with ourselves first. And it's hard to connect with yourself when you're constantly being distracted with push notifications and everything going on. Life has gone a bit more, it's a lot faster than it was before. So I think the Sean of today and what I hope to see more of in the world around me is more thoughtful and more aware of what's going on inside and how that's impacting my overall happiness. And less distracted by the need to satisfy others, less distracted by the need to sort of define happiness. I think we define happiness as a society, and this is a problem I see in young people, as I'm gonna kill myself, work really hard, stress out, and only to get to that end goal where I've achieved my goals, then I'm gonna go focus on my happiness, and then I'm gonna go focus on my mental well-being. It's literally the reverse. The stronger you are inside, the more you conquer yourself, the more you have the ability to go out there and conquer the rest of the world and conquer your dreams and conquer your ambitions. And I hope that as a society we start to shift that paradigm. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it in young people. I think there's just this desire to open up about mental illness. Now that I've been working about this and I've been more open about it, I mean, I am overwhelmed by the stories I hear. There's not a single person that I've talked to about the research that I'm investing in, that I'm learning about, that will not share a very personal, gut-wrenching story about someone they know or themselves suffering from anxiety, mental illness, suicide. But kind of like when I started Tinder, we didn't really want to talk about dating. It was taboo. And now I sense that for a while we didn't want to talk about mental health. It's all been about physical health.
Yeah.
And I think there's a shift. We're going to start placing equal importance to our mental well-being as we are to our physical well-being.
Cool. Shanrat, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Awesome. Thanks.